the African Union Commission last year, February 2025. This offers an opportunity for constructive discussions on the progress made so far. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the program of our opening ceremony will be as follows. First and foremost, we are going to listen to the statements that will be made respectively by His Excellency Mahmoud Ali Yusuf, His Excellency Dr. Abiy Ahmed, His Excellency Antonio Guterres, His Excellency Mohamed Mustafa, His Excellency Her Excellency Giorgia Meloni, and His Excellency João Manuel Goncalves. These statements will be followed by the announcement of the Bureau of the Assembly of the African Union for the year 2026. And in this vein, His Excellency João Lorenzo, President of the Republic of Angola and the outgoing chairperson of the African Union, will make his handing over statement as the outgoing chair of the African Union. And after that, His Excellency Evariste Ndayishimiye, President of the Republic of Burundi, the incoming AU chairperson, will also make his own acceptance statement. And these statements, Your Excellencies, will be followed by the presentation and the launch of the African Union theme of the year 2026. That is, guarantee the sustainable availability of water and health systems to meet the objectives of Agenda 2063. That said, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it is my singular honor and pleasure to invite His Excellency Mahmoud Ali Yusuf, Chairperson of the AU Commission, to make his opening statement.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim.
Excellency João Lorenzo, President of the Republic of Angola and Chair of the African Union, Excellency Dr. Abiy Mohamed, Prime Minister of Ethiopia, ladies and gentlemen, heads of state and government, Excellency Giorgia Meloni, President of Italy, and Honorable Mustafa, Prime Minister of the Palestinian Authority, UN Secretary General, representatives of Pan-African institutions, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. At the outset, I would like to wish you a very happy New Year 2026. I also want to wish you all a warm welcome to the African Union, especially the newly elected heads of state. Permit me also to congratulate and thank President Lorenzo of Angola for his chairship of the Union in 2025, which has given a new fillip to our continental agenda. The 39th summit of the African Union, ladies and gentlemen, is based on the theme water and sanitation, which is key to our economies and which is a collective good which should be a source of peace and cooperation among nations. Our summit is taking place against the backdrop of a crisis in the world and on the continent and in the world, and our policy of silencing the gun is far from becoming a reality, and the open or latent conflicts are chronic. Unconstitutional change of government is also reminds us of the obscure post-independence period. The change in the international order significantly impacts the affairs of the continent, without forgetting the interference in our affairs by externalities. Multilateralism is sorely tested, and we are witnessing the emergence of unilateralism and protectionism. In the face of these, Africa should scale up its cooperation through the enhancing of its integration and cooperation programs. Pan-African institutions should intensify their efforts and determination. ASCFTA, Outer NEPAD, Africa CDC, and other mechanisms of African Union should work together. We request African financial institutions, AFC, the African Development Bank, and African Bank to work together. Ladies and gentlemen, regional economic communities also have to scale up their operations. By 2050, Africa should be able to rival with the major economies. Agenda 2063 should guide us towards the Africa that we want, a strong, autonomous, and prosperous Africa. These are not pious wishes, but an imperative for survival. And the major countries in the world are preparing for the polarization of this world. Africa is in the global south, but Africa has its own hallmark and its own identity. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the reform of the institution should continue. The mobilization of domestic resources to finance the programs of the continent is not an option. It's urgent in the face of external terrorists. Our youth on the continent are impatient, and our women want more equality. Our civil society is positioning itself. So it's crucial to expedite the industrialization of the continent and the transformation of agriculture. And that will only be possible if we develop the energy potential of Africa and also create the necessary infrastructure. These are the prerequisites for the economic development of the continent expected. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the projects are complex and many. And we also know the challenges. You are confronted with these challenges on a daily basis in your respective countries. The African Union Commission, which I heard, will spare no efforts to advance this agenda. This is a long-term work, and we need to ensure that our action is sustainable. The 5-year 2022-2028 plan has been launched. The Agenda 2023 decade should be characterized by a high level of performance and execution. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it's also important to focus on the suffering of our people, victims of war, injustice, displacement, and we cannot avoid their daily challenges. From the Sudan to the Sahel, to the east of the Democratic Republic of Congo, Somalia, and elsewhere, our people continue to bear the brunt of instability. In the Middle East, Palestine, so the suffering of Palestinians also calls on us to act. The suffering of people should cease. International law and international humanitarian law are the basis of the international community. Preserving and promoting them will be the only pathway to ensuring peace in the world. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I wish you a very success in your deliberation. Thank you.
Che le vostre deliberazioni abbiano successo nei prossimi giorni. Grazie.
Merci, Votre Excellenza.
Thank you, Excellency, and we warmly welcome the Prime Minister of the State of Palestine, who has
al
joined
Presidente
us
dello
on the
Stato di
podium.
Palestina,
We
che ci ha
also
raggiunto
acknowledge
qui
His
al
Excellency
podio.
Madam Amina Mohammed,
Chiediamo il benvenuto alla signora
Deputy Secretary General of the
Mohammed,
United Nations, and
Segretario Generale delle
who is
Nazioni
also
Unite,
one of the
che
Africans most known in this in the Commission. So welcome. So it's an immense privilege to invite His Excellency Dr. Abiy Ahmed, Prime Minister of Ethiopia, to deliver his statement. Excellency, you have the floor.
Prego, a lei la parola.
Your Excellency,
Eccellenze,
Joao
Eccellenza Joao Lorenzo,
Chairperson of the African
Presidente
Union,
uscente dell'Unione Africana, Eccellenza
Giorgia
Meloni,
Republic of Italy,
Presidente del Consiglio
Your
della Repubblica
Excellencies,
Italiana,
Heads of State and Government, Your Excellency Mahmoud Ali Yusuf, Chairperson of the African Union Commission, Your Excellency Antonio Guterres, Secretary General of the United Nations, Your Excellency Madam Amina, Deputy Secretary General of the United Nations, former Heads of State and Government present, distinguished ministers, ambassadors, diplomats, ladies and gentlemen. I warmly welcome you to Ethiopia, a land where human origins are traced, where time is measured differently, where coffee was first shared with the world, a place where deep history, proven resilience, and bold ambition for Africa's future converge. Today, as Africa gathers at a defining moment, we recognize that our continent's most strategic asset is not only what we extract, but what we design, build, and govern. Progress is achieved when vision is translated into systems and ideas into lasting institutions. As we build on the African Water Vision 2025, we reflect on a simple truth. Water is more than a resource. It is a foundation of development, innovation, and stability. It shapes our cities, our farms, our health, and our peace. Here in Ethiopia, we have learned that responsible water management is central to guiding development wisely. The Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam now powers homes and industry, exports electricity to neighboring countries, and shows how African ingenuity can drive shared prosperity. Across Africa, rivers can become engines of stability when governed for shared benefit. On our land, targeted policy and innovation have enabled wheat self-sufficiency, and large-scale industrial investments are moving us from dependency to production. Excellencies, today, many African economies are among the fastest growing in the world. Projections show that Africa's growth will be on par, if not above, that of Asia. This is a rare convergence in modern economic history. In Ethiopia, we expect growth of 10.2% by the end of this year. Over the next 25 years, we aim to move from a low-income economy to a globally competitive one, anchored in productivity, industrialization, innovation, and quality jobs. Yet, growth alone is not enough. Our greatest wealth is our people. By 2035, Africa will add more young people to the global workforce than the rest of the world combined. This demographic reality must be harnessed with purpose. Numbers alone will not deliver prosperity. That's why we are investing in maternal and child health, expanding early childhood education, and scaling school feeding programs. Every child must arrive at school nourished, ready to learn, and prepare to contribute. We also strongly believe development must include all. Across Ethiopia, urban and rural areas are being transformed, designed to be green, human-centered, and resilient. Excellencies, in Addis Ababa, riverside renewal has transformed degraded waterways into clean, vibrant public spaces, reducing flood risk, restoring dignity, and strengthening community life. As Africa's urban landscape expands rapidly, we must be intentional. The African city of the future is walkable, green, youth-centered, and grounded in dignity and belonging. In rural areas, modernization is enhancing livelihoods, connecting communities to markets. This integrated approach links development with climate stewardship. One expression of this is the Green Legacy Initiative. We have planted more than 48 billion trees, restoring ecosystems and building a living legacy for future generations. Yet, the global development pathway has come at immense environmental cost, costs borne by communities far beyond those responsible. Therefore, climate action must be anchored in justice and equity, aligning finance, technology, and partnership to enable Africa to thrive. In this spirit, we hosted the second Africa Climate Summit, and we are preparing to host COP32, ensuring Africa speaks with one voice and presents solutions to the globe. This same principle of integration guides our technological transformation. Under Digital Ethiopia 2030, we're building digital public infrastructure that places citizens at the center of service delivery. By linking FIDA, our national digital ID, with payment systems and the massive data exchange, we enable secure access to services, seamless transactions, and responsible data sharing, fostering trust and driving our economy forward. In 2020, Ethiopia established Africa's first artificial intelligence institute. Building on this foundation, we are preparing to launch an AI university anchored in the Ethiopian philosophy of Maddamar, synergy through purposeful collaboration. This institution will unite human values with the machine intelligence, local context with global relevance, and scientific rigor with applied impact. It will ensure technology drives growth and position Africa as a global contributor in the age of intelligence. Ethiopia is also continuing to invest in connectivity. Through Ethiopian Airlines, we connect people, link markets, and move goods. To sustain this momentum, we are building Africa's largest airport, a next-generation gateway that will anchor our continent in global value chain. Beyond aviation, Ethio Telecom is expanding across Africa, bridging the digital divide and linking our continent's future through strategic partnerships. Yet, connectivity must be complete. For a nation like Ethiopia, with over 130 million people, sustainable growth requires diversified access. Ensuring reliable access to the sea through peaceful cooperation is fundamental to our economic future and to long-term stability and prosperity in the Horn of Africa. Excellencies, we meet at a moment of profound global transition. In this era of uncertainty, Africa's strengths will lie in a union that is confident and united. As we approach the African Union Silver Jubilee, the moment marks a transition from foundational unity to functional sovereignty. Sovereignty means owning our narrative. Through initiatives like Pulse of Africa, we amplify African voices because development is never complete without our story. Africa can contribute stability, scale, and solutions to a changing world. But we must do more than respond to crisis. We must shape agendas, turning vision into action and leading with purpose. Every river we manage, every city we design, and every digital platform we deploy must generate resilience, opportunity, and dignity. By 2063, Africa will be defined by what we secure, what we sustain, and what we share. Ladies and gentlemen, this is our moment, and this is our responsibility. To conclude, I extend my appreciation to our outgoing chairperson, President João Lourenço for his leadership and service to our Union. I also warmly congratulate our new incoming chairperson and wish him success in guiding Africa forward. God bless Ethiopia. God bless Africa. I thank you.
Benedica l'Africa, grazie.
Merci beaucoup, Excellence.
Thank you very much, Excellency. Now I have the singular honor of inviting His Excellency Antonio Guterres, Secretary General of the United Nations Organization, to deliver his statement. Excellency, you have the floor.
Presidente João Lourenço da República de Angola e Chairperson da União Africana, distinguished heads of state and government, Chairperson Mahmoud Yusuf of the Commission of the African Union, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. In a world filled with division and mistrust, the African Union is a flagship for multilateralism. My gratitude runs deep. I will carry with me always the unwavering decisive support of the African group in the UN on issue after issue, initiative after initiative, in the shared struggle for justice and equality. Your solidarity has not only strengthened our efforts, it has moved me deeply, and I will never forget it. From day one of my mandate, we forged the UN partnership with the African Union rooted in respect, constant dialogue, and unwavering solidarity. Over the last decade, our cooperation has reached new heights. Joint frameworks on peace and security, sustainable development and human rights, collaboration during COVID-19, important new partnerships, and the landmark adoption of Security Council Resolution 2719, creating a pathway for predictable funding for EU-led peace support operations. We have been honoured to support EU priorities, from silencing the guns to the African Humanitarian Agency to the promotion of inclusive political transitions. And we have stood with Africa as you lead global demands for justice, confronting the legacy of slavery and colonialism, including your call for reparatory justice frameworks, championing the Sustainable Development Goals, driving climate ambition, and strengthening multilateralism for the 21st century through the reforms of the global financial architecture and, at long last, the UN Security Council. The absence of permanent African seats in the Security Council is indefensible. This is 2026, not 1946. Whatever decisions about Africa and the world are on the table, Africa must be at the table. Excellencies, these priorities inform the Pact for the Future, shaped by African leadership and the UN80 initiative to strengthen UN support to Africa and beyond. Looking ahead, we continue to have three major areas of focus. First, peace. In Sudan, the parties must commit to an immediate cessation of hostilities and resume talks towards a lasting ceasefire and comprehensive, inclusive and Sudanese-owned political process. In South Sudan, the EU's high-level ad hoc committee provides an important chance to revive political dialogue and prevent renewed conflict. In the Democratic Republic of the Congo, commitments must be honoured, starting with an immediate ceasefire in the respect of the territorial integrity of the RDC. In the Central African Republic, political and security gains must be consolidated. And in Libya, All actors must advance a Libyan-led process supported by the United Nations Support Mission. Across West Africa and the Sahel, coordinated efforts are essential to end cycles of violence, terrorism and displacement. And this Somalia, sustained and predictable funding for the EU support and stabilization mission is vital. I regret the Security Council's lack of consensus for finance through assessed contributions. If the mission of the EU in Somalia did not warrant global support, what would? More broadly, we are reviewing peace operations to ensure mandates are realistic, sequenced and well-resourced and supported by clear transition strategies. Excellence. Deuxièmement, l'action économique. De financement vertigineux des objectifs de développement durable de 4 000 milliards de dollars par an. Dans le même temps, l'Afrique perd chaque année davantage en remboursement de la dette et en flux financiers illicites qu'elle ne reçoit d'aide. Parallèlement, les pays africains paient des taux d'emprunt jusqu'à 8 fois supérieurs à ceux des économies avancées. Nous devons tripler la capacité de prêt des banques multilatérales de développement, mobiliser davantage de financements privés, réduire les coûts et les risques d'emprunt et soutenir les pays en situation d'endettement, de surendettement, et réformer l'architecture financière internationale afin de garantir aux pays en développement, et notamment aux pays africains, une voix, une participation pleine et entière dans les institutions financières et les prises de décision. La communauté internationale doit aussi assumer pleinement ses responsabilités dans la lutte contre le blanchissement de l'argent, l'évasion fiscale et les flux financiers illicites. Excellencies, third, climate action. Your team underlines the urgency of resilient water and sanitation systems in a warming planet. The science is unequivocal. The planet will overshoot the 1.5 degrees Celsius limit. Our common task is to make that overshoot as small, short and safe as possible. The G20 accounts for close to 80% of global emissions, and they must deliver major reductions this decade. Meanwhile, Africa, with 60% of the world's best solar potential, can become a clean energy powerhouse. Yet Africa receives only 2% of global clean energy investments. After contributing almost nothing to the crisis, Africa faces faster than average warming. Adaptation must be a priority, and that requires developed countries tripling adaptation finance and mobilizing the $1.3 trillion a year for developing countries by 2035, as agreed in Baku. Scaling up the Loss and Damage Fund and accelerating a just, orderly and equitable transition from fossil fuels to renewables. Expanding early warning systems and ensuring African countries benefit first and fully from their critical minerals through fair, sustainable value chains and manufacturing, in line with the recommendations of the UN panel on critical energy transition minerals. No more exploitation, no more plundering. The people of Africa must benefit from the resources of Africa. Excellencies, your leadership and solidarity have shaped my mission as Secretary General every step of the way. Let's keep going, strengthening our partnership for peace, sustainable development and human rights for Africa and our world. And allow me a final observation. Some have described my presence here as a farewell. It's not true. I can guarantee that until the last moment of my mandate, Africa will be the priority number one of the UN in all its activities. And that the partnership between the African Union and the UN will be our deepest strategic partnership. And after the 31st of December, I can guarantee that wherever I will be, whatever I will be doing, in the center of my concerns and of my active solidarity, there will be Africa always. Africa sempre.
Merci beaucoup, Votre Excellence.
I thank you very much, Excellency. His Excellency Mohammed Mustafa, Prime Minister of the State of Palestine, in order to address this august assembly. Excellency, you have the floor. Your Excellency João Lourenço, Chairman of the African Union, President of the Republic of Angola, Your Excellency Mahmoud Ali Yusuf, Chairperson of the Commission of the African Union, Your Excellency Abiy Ahmed, Prime Minister of the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia, Your Excellency Giorgia Meloni, President of the Council of Italy, Your Excellency Secretary General Mr. Guterres of the UN, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, good morning to you all. I'm very pleased to stand before you here on behalf of your brother, His Excellency Mahmoud Abbas, President of the State of Palestine, conveying to you his greetings and his wishes of success for the 39th Assembly of the African Union until it achieves its goals, and also until it achieves for Africa and its struggling peoples prosperity, stability, and sustainable development. Now I will read to you the message or the statement of President Mahmoud Abbas to this Assembly. We would like, first of all, to express our congratulations to the President of Burundi, Mr. Everest Shimi, for being elected at the helm of this Assembly in 2026, and we extend our thanks and gratitude to the President of the Republic of Angola, João Lourenço, for chairing the previous session of the Union. I would like also to seize this opportunity in order to reaffirm our pride for the deep ties and also the solidarity of Africa with Palestine, and also the common values on which the relationship between Africa and Palestine has been established since the last century, at the top of which the rejection of all forms of colonization and the right of peoples for freedom and self-determination, and also dependency, and also the common objectives of development, the sharing of expertise and benefits in order to achieve prosperity and economic integration and the reinforcement of ties and mutual benefits among our peoples. And in this respect, we would like to commend the efforts of the African Union and the member states in order to achieve sustainable development and also high growth rates, and we would like to support these efforts which are aimed at exploiting resources and the wealth of the continent in the service of the African peoples. Mr. Chairman, Excellencies, heads of state and government and heads of delegations, our Palestinian people is still suffering from the occupation, from the Israeli occupation. And also the crimes of Israel have been increasing day after day, and we need more solidarity and efforts by the international community in order to achieve its freedom and self-determination and build up its state on the borders of 1967 and based also on international resolutions. This summit is taking place at a very important juncture for the Palestinian people, who is still suffering. And the war in Gaza has been unprecedented, and you have been watching and following this war through your televisions, which has cost more than 70,000 deaths. And the 85% of our infrastructure in Gaza has been demolished in violation of international law. The state of Palestine has agreed on the ceasefire, and also the American decision on Gaza, and which has which would lead to self-determination for the Palestinians after a period of transition of 2 years. Our agreement is based on our conviction that war must be ended and that the suffering of our peoples must be ended, particularly that the resolution of the United Nations has stipulated that this transition period will last 2 years. Our agreement is based also on our conviction for the need to end the war against our people and ease their suffering, especially that the resolution of the United Nations Security Council has stipulated the necessity of access of humanitarian assistance and the start of reconstruction in Gaza. But despite this ceasefire, thanks to the role played by the mediators, particularly the United States, Turkey, and Qatar, despite all this, Israel is still violating this ceasefire since it has killed, since the time of the ceasefire up to now, more than 500 Palestinians since the proclamation of the ceasefire, which threatens the ceasefire and undermines the second phase fully. And in this context, we would like to reaffirm the need to lift all the obstacles that are imposed by Israel against the arrangements that are related to the second phase, including the work of the Board of Gaza in order to ensure the continuation of the services and humanitarian assistance. Our vision for the future of Gaza is quite clear. Gaza is an integrated part of Palestine, and our people is one. And our national project is one as part of our overall vision, which is based on one state, one political system, one government, one law, and one legislation based on the UN Security Council relevant resolutions. Ladies and gentlemen, what is taking place in the West Bank reflects the suffering which the people in Gaza are faced with, since there is an enlargement of the settlements and our people are suffering from the violence exerted by the settlers and the confiscation of their lands and goods through as a violation against international law. And last month alone, the terrorist settlers have committed more than 72 aggressions against our people in the West Bank. And the Israeli government has undertaken a new legislation which reinforces settlement and which allows the confiscation of lands in violation of international law. All this in order to impose the Israeli sovereignty on Palestine and prevent the setting up of the Palestinian state. These measures, which have been proclaimed recently, need a vigorous response in order to save the solution based on two states. And the Israeli government is trying to undermine the action of the Palestinian government through trying to keep the taxes and this in violation of the Protocol of Oslo, which was agreed upon by the two sides, since those funds that have been restrained by Israel are estimated at more than $4 billion, and our government has lost more than 70% of its outcome. So which government could really carry on its action while losing more than a third of its financial resources? And we must also talk about the city of Jerusalem because of its religious and historical and legal importance and all the policies that it is faced with aimed at imposing at undermining the presence of the Palestinians in Jerusalem. And these policies include the violation of the sanctity of the Holy Mosque. This in addition to policies of demolition of homes and also the prevention of Christians and Muslims from access to holy shrines in order to undertake their prayers in Jerusalem, in Al-Quds. This is a violation of international law and legitimacy. And these measures undermine any horizon in order to achieve sustainable and lasting peace in the region. And we must here underscore that East Jerusalem is part and parcel of the state of Palestine, and that any attempts to impose a new reality will not change the legal status of this holy city. Mr. Chairman, heads of delegations, last year was very important as concerns the international momentum in support of our people, and particularly the International Alliance for the two-state solution and the initiative of Saudi Arabia and our friends in France in organizing a conference on the two-state solution, this in compliance with the UN resolution. And this has led to the New York Agreement, which was agreed by the General Assembly on the 12th of September 2025 with the support of your countries in the service, in the benefit of this proclamation. And the international recognition was very important, since the number of countries which have recognized the state of Palestine, 160 states. Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to reiterate my thanks and gratitude for the principle-based positions of the African Union and its member states in supporting and backing the Palestinian questions in all the regional and international fora. And we would like also to reiterate our support to your actions and struggle and priorities in Africa, and the need to enable Africa to play its leading role in a multilateral world while protecting its cultural identity and sovereignty. And we would like to greet on this occasion the great efforts which are being made by the UN and its Secretary General and its agencies in providing important assistance and services to our people, and we would like to commend also the efforts, whether formal or informal, which have supported the Palestinian question and which have considered the Palestinian issue as a central one. We would like to support our full support to the aspirations of our brothers in Africa for stability, prosperity and development, and wish full success to your work and the future of Africa and its free peoples, and wish them more prosperity. Wassalamu alaikum. Thank you for your kind attention.
Merci, Votre Excellence.
I thank you, Excellency. I have the honor now to invite His Excellency Giorgia Meloni, President of the Council of the Republic of Italy, to make her statement. Excellency, you have the floor.
Presidents, Prime Ministers, authorities, ladies and gentlemen. It is a great honor for me to be here with you today. And I would like to express my heartfelt thanks once again to President Yusuf and President Lorenzo, as well as to all of you for this historic opportunity offered to Italy. The invitation to participate in the Assembly of Heads of State and Government of the African Union, the forum in which this organization discusses its fundamental political choices and determines the strategic direction of the continent, is a recognition that can only make Italy proud and that will Italy accept with respect and a sense of responsibility. It is a demonstration of trust that we will not disappoint. I have the honor to lead a nation that has in its DNA characteristics that historically make it a respected and valued partner. Propensity for dialogue, capacity for discussion, respect for others before anything else. A nation that has built part of its identity and its foreign policy on the profound meaning of a war that in times as unstable and unpredictable as ours can be the key to charting the course. And that word is cooperation. The word cooperation comes from the Latin cooperare, to work with. True cooperation, that is, never sees an active and a passive subject, but exists only in a relation between equals, a relation in which the specificities of each one are indispensable for achieving a common goal. If you look down on someone, you cannot cooperate with them. If you want to plunder their resources, you are not cooperating with them. Even if you just want to give charity, you cannot call it cooperation, for cooperation is another thing. And what Italy wants to do is to cooperate. Yesterday, together with many of you, we attended the second Italy-Africa Summit, the first ever to be held on this continent. I would like to thank the Ethiopian Prime Minister, my friend Abiy Ahmed, and the leaders of the African Union for their hospitality and cooperation in organizing the event. In that context, we discussed what we can do to further strengthen and consolidate one of the most concrete outcomes of this idea of cooperation, which is the Mattei Plan for Africa. The investment plan that Italy has implemented in various nations of the continent in areas ranging from infrastructure to agriculture, from health to training. This is a strategy that we have built together, because we do not conceive of the Mattei Plan as an Italian plan for Africa, but as Italy's contribution to your agenda, with a particular focus on this year on water-related projects. It is an open platform for putting our know-how, our technologies, our investments at the service of the objectives that the African Union has set out in Agenda 2063, starting with the creation of a continental free trade area that is integrated and prosperous. This is an ambitious goal which we will support and which will require efficient, secure and fast economic interconnections in order to be achieved. Like the Lobito corridor, the railway and infrastructure backbone that will connect African markets to global ones and bring people, ideas and economies closer together. A strategic project that sees Italy at the forefront together with the United States and the European Union. In short, the Mattei Plan is a comprehensive strategy that generates concrete benefits for our peoples and aims to continually expand its scope, relying on the irreplaceable contribution of major United Nations agencies, and I want to thank the Secretary General Antonio Guterres, but also the World Bank, the African Development Bank, and many other partners who increasingly share our vision. 2 years ago in Rome, we set out the course together. And in recent years, we have followed it with consistency and determination, adding a new piece to the mosaic each time and bringing new nations on board every year. We have done so on many fronts, starting with what I consider to be crucial for building a true free Africa capable of determining its own destiny, addressing the issue of debt. We wanted to chart a course on this issue as well. Therefore, Italy has decided to launch a vast program to convert the debt of African nations, which includes among its main points the complete transformation of the debt of the most fragile and vulnerable countries into investments, and the strengthening of the contribution to the World Bank's AIDA funds. Similarly, we've introduced specific debt suspension clauses into our bilateral loans, allowing African nations affected by extreme weather events to free up fiscal space to help their population and rebuild essential infrastructures. These are choices based on justice and responsibility, which are crucial for freeing up resources that are vital for development and for assuring peace and prosperity, including in those areas of the continent that are currently more affected than others by instability, insecurity, and serious humanitarian crises, such as neighboring Sudan and Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo. But we also want our collaboration to be political at the multilateral level. We want to help strengthen the valuable work carried out daily by the African Union, ensuring greater consistency to the mediation activities carried out by the UN and the European Union and key international partners. We will continue to do our part because we are aware that the future of Italy and Europe also depends on a secure, prosperous and peaceful Africa. It is often said in the many analyses of the troubled and complex times we are living in that history has started running again. This is true. And my opinion is that today it is running here. Africa is not a marginal chapter in this story, far from it. And those who do not understand this scenario risk being left behind. But those who understand this scenario see the reality. A continent with 1,000 peculiarities and 1,000 demands, some of which are very different from each other. A continent rich in resources, raw materials, and arable land, which can count on a decisive force in the age of knowledge, which is human capital. This is why Italy has focused much of its energy on training projects for young people, including in the field of artificial intelligence. In short, our point of view is that Italy and Europe cannot think about the future without taking Africa into proper consideration, because our future also depends on yours. Aware of this, Italy intends to continue to be a privileged bridge between Europe and Africa, making available the strength of its institutions, its great tradition of dialogue, and the expertise of its companies. We want to do this also to achieve another goal that we all consider momentous, to guarantee the men and women of this continent a freedom that has often been denied them. The freedom to choose to remain in their country, to contribute to its growth without being forced to leave it, often paying unscrupulous traffickers to risk their lives in an attempt to cross the Mediterranean. Those who believe that migration is necessary and indispensable are in fact acting selfishly. If young people leave their land and their people in pursuit of the promise of a better life, what will become of the history, culture, and existence of a country they have abandoned? These words are not mine, nor those of a political leader, but of a son who is proud of Africa and who holds Africa's future close to his heart, which is the Guinean Cardinal Robert Sarah. Clearly, in order to guarantee the right not to have to emigrate, it is necessary to offer concrete opportunities for training and work, to enhance human capital and improve the quality of education, invest in skills and educational systems, and create industrial partnership and joint ventures capable of generating stable, quality employment in the territories. This is our mission, which is being put into practice in the many initiatives that Italy is promoting, including together with the African Union. And what I would like to see today is, in this solemn place dedicated to another great son of a free and proud Africa, Nelson Mandela, is a great alliance between us to put training, research, university, and innovation at the center of our common commitment. An alliance aimed not at taking away talent, but at multiplying it and building a model of development that respects people and values different identities. Presidents, prime ministers, dear friends, Pliny the Elder, one of the most famous historians of ancient Rome, said that something new always arises from Africa. So my wish for each of us is that something new may truly arise from today's meeting, something that no one expects or that many considered impossible. For impossible is usually the word that people without courage use. Something capable of astonishing the world and suddenly making everything we have seen so far seem trivial. I thank you all.
Thank you so much, Excellency. J'ai l'insigne honneur maintenant.
I
have the honor now to invite His Excellency João Lourenço, President of the Republic of Angola and the Chairperson of the African Union, to make his statement. Your Excellency, the floor is yours.
Yes, indeed.
His Majesty Mswati III of the Kingdom of Eswatini, His Majesty Letsi III of the Kingdom of Lesotho, His Excellency Abiy Ahmed Ali, Prime Minister of the Democratic Republic of Ethiopia and the host of the Assembly, His Excellency Evariste Ndayishimiye, President of the Republic of Burundi and incoming Chairperson of the African Union, Excellencies, Heads of States and Government of the African Union, His Excellency Prime Minister of the State of Palestine, His Excellency Giorgia Meloni, Prime Minister of the Council of Ministers of the Italian Republic, Excellency Antonio Guterres, Secretary General of the UN, Excellency representatives of heads of states and government of the African Union, Excellencies, heads of delegations, Excellency Mahmoud Ali Yusuf, Chairperson of the African Union Commission, distinguished members of the diplomatic corps accredited in Addis Ababa, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it is with the highest honor that, as a chairperson of the African Union, I take the floor to address your excellencies at this assembly to open the 39th ordinary session of the Assembly of Heads of State and Government of the African Union, dedicated to a theme of strategic importance for the present and future of our continent, namely ensuring sustainable water availability and safe sanitation systems to achieve the goals of Agenda 2063. I would like to begin by expressing my deepest gratitude to His Excellency Abiy Ahmed Ali, Prime Minister of the Federal and Democratic Republic of Ethiopia, and to the Ethiopian people for the warm welcome and generous hospitality extended to all delegations since our arrival in this country of particular importance to our continent by virtue of its history, and for hosting the headquarters of the African Union, the organization that unites all peoples of Africa. During this assembly, we will discuss issues of great importance for the functioning and growth of the African Union, as well as reflecting on the objectives set by the organization for the year that has just ended, on results achieved and what remains to be achieved. We will also endeavor to jointly chart the most appropriate course of action to ensure the effective operation of matters relating to water as a vital and irreplaceable resource and the strategic resource essential to economic development, public health, food security, social stability, and peace in Africa. We will also highlight the need to work hard to ensure that access to drinking water and sanitation is not just a technical issue, but a potential and a moral commitment to our peoples, because despite the abundance of water resources on the continent, we continue to witness situations where African citizens are deprived of safe access to drinking water and adequate sanitation, which is a collective challenge that requires courageous, integrated and sustainable responses. The efforts that we have undertaken to build the Africa we want cannot be fully realized without making significant investment that deliver tangible results in the water and sanitation sector. Only in this way we will ensure universal and equitable access to these services and fulfill the aspiration of Agenda 2063, particularly with regard to inclusive development, human capital, climate resilience, and good governance. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, exactly 1 year ago, the Republic of Angola assumed the chairmanship of the African Union with the firm determination to advance initiatives to contribute to the attainment of the overarching objective enshrined in the Agenda 2063 of the African Union, as well as for the effective operationalization of the issue related to this search for justice for Africans and people of African descent through reparations, a theme adopted by our organization for the year 2025. This mission, entrusted for the first time to my country, has allowed me to contribute with your support to the progress of our common cause based on shared values inspired by the founding fathers of the Pan-Africanism. Throughout this mandate, we have endeavored to strengthen the role of African Union as a platform for political coordination and concrete action, promoting a closer synergy between member states and the regional economic community, reinforcing preventive approaches to the impacts of climate change, mobilizing strategic partnership for the funding of resilient infrastructure, and reaffirming the following principles. Sustainable development is inseparable from stability and lasting peace. The full development of Africa will only be possible if no one is left behind. It is in this framework that Angola chairship was structured, upholding infrastructure and human capital as key pillars of Africa's comprehensive development, underpinned by fundamental strategic priorities, namely peace, security, and good governance, sustainable development and economic growth, continental integration, human capital and infrastructure, and the strengthening of strategic partnership and effective and inclusive multilateralism. As part of the implementation of the main objective focus on the above-mentioned theme, we worked in coordination with the African Union Commission to hold in Rwanda the third summit on financing for development of infrastructures in Africa that was held in October 2025. This event, aligned with the U.S. Africa Business Forum, held in June of the same year, and with the priority action defined at the continental level within the framework of the acceleration of the second 10-year implementation plan of the Agenda 2063 for the period 2024-2033, was a unique opportunity to articulate our national, regional, and continental development strategies in line with our ambition for growth, transformation, and regional integration. At the Infrastructure Summit and also at the Business Forum with the United States, we were able to unite Africa's key partners around the fulfillment of the commitments of the great development dream and thus mobilize significant financial resources to invest in sectors like health, agribusiness, tourism, digital transformation, integrated economic corridors, rail network, transnational motorways, the African single electricity market, and the development of our African aviation master plan. We recently announced in Dubai the launch of a major platform entrusted with mobilizing financial capital dispersed across the world to be directed to Africa within an innovative framework aimed at leveraging our natural resources for economic development and social development of our continent. This is the Global Summit for Investment in Africa, whose main promoter is Dr. Akinwumi Adesina, our well-known brother, which will have its first summit in Rwanda at the end of this year. By doing so, we have demonstrated that Africa is capable of mobilizing, plan, and act collectively to build solid foundations for a better future. In carrying out the initiative described above, we also aimed to emphasize the acceleration and the implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Area as a true engine of Africa's economic transformation and social transformation. This flagship project of the Agenda 2063 of the African Union has the potential to make us more stronger in a world increasingly marked by polarization, contributing for a meaningful integration, which remains one of the central pillars of our collective action. In this context, I'm confident that we will continue to work together to expand transnational transport projects and energy infrastructure aimed at connecting our peoples and our market, as the important investment in my country by Lobito Corridor, just to mention but one example. Without roads, without ports and adequate digital and energy networks, without consistent infrastructure, integration will remain an unattainable dream. Considering that Africa cannot be a spectator but a central player in the transformation of the world for the preservation of its strategic interests, structural interests, we participated on behalf of the continent in the G20 summit, in the Tokyo International Conference on African Development, TICAD, in the African Union, European Union Summit, in the 4th International Conference on Financing for Development in Sevilla, and in the 80th session of the United Nations General Assembly in New York. Our participation in these events was extremely important for Africa because we took advantage of these occasions to defend our common position on issues of vital interest for our continent, such as the reforming of the international financial architectures in making it more inclusive, effective, and adapted to the current challenges, supporting the reduction of African countries' debt costs, and increasing access to sustainable financing, strengthening our renewable energy production capacity, increasing climate resilience, and social protection. We reaffirm our commitment towards multilateralism based on respect for international law and the United Nations Charter, and on the reform of the United Nations system, with particular emphasis on the Security Council, which must reflect the reality of the current world in order to ensure the balance between the different geopolitical interests and regain its ability to fully play its role as guarantor of world peace and security. We stand for the promotion of a CFTA as engine of continental economic integration as an important tool for global trade stability. In addition, we highlight the need to count on the support of our partners in investing in Africa's industrial development and transformation of our agricultural system to make them resilient to climate change. The Angolan President has also paid particular attention to the internal function of the African Union from the technical, legal and administrative organizational point of view. I would like to highlight the initiative of strengthening our general working methods by adopting a more agile, less bureaucratic model capable of leading to effective solutions and solid conclusions, supported by an agenda that can be addressed within a reasonable time frame. This effort, which is of consensus amongst member states, will lead to the adoption of a decision of great importance during this present session. In parallel, in the reforms of our organization for its better functioning, I would like to highlight and commend the commitment and dedication shown by His Excellency William Ruto, President of the Republic of Kenya, and champion of institutional reforms, who will present us a consolidated report on the ongoing process. This document will reflect our desire to streamline African Union structures, contain administrative costs, and strengthen the coherence between institutional reforms and operational effectiveness and credibility of our continental organization. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, issues relating to the promotion of peace, security and stability in Africa have also been at the heart of our action, since any effort to build the Africa we want will only be possible if we succeed in realizing the dream of silencing the guns in Africa. We have undertaken a collective effort to achieve swift, robust and effective solutions to bring to an end the protracted conflicts that undermine the stability in the continent. Terrorism, violent extremism, unconstitutional change of government, with 2 new cases in Madagascar and in Guinea-Bissau, maritime piracy that makes security fragile in Africa. As the chairperson of the African Union, as champion for peace and reconciliation in Africa, we will continue to undertake actions to contribute to the resolution of the complex conflicts ravaging Sudan and the DRC. We are deeply concerned about the intensification of clashes between the Sudanese armed forces and the RSF, which have plunged the country into an unprecedented humanitarian crisis with thousands of deaths, massive population displacement, and essential infrastructure destroyed. It is important that the world turns its attention to this catastrophe unfolding in Sudan so that it can be resolved rapidly and protect the civilian populations. We must continue to join forces in helping the people of Sudan in finding the path to peace harmony and national reconciliation. With regard to the situation in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, notwithstanding the initiatives undertaken by the Republic of the Angola, Republic of Kenya, which followed the negotiation of ceasefire in Doha and peace accord in Washington, D.C., we continue to observe with concern the deterioration of the security and humanitarian situation marked by the recent occupation of new strategic position and the establishment of a parallel administration in the occupied territories occupied by M23. In order not to lose the gains achieved under the process of Washington and Doha, which recognize the need for inter-Congolese dialogue, Angola has developed initiatives to highlight the vital and urgent importance of the initiation of dialogue as a unique step towards national reconciliation and the achievement of lasting peace throughout the country. In the context of these efforts, I would like to take this opportunity to congratulate the diplomatic initiatives of His Excellency Faure Nyasimbe, President of the Council of Talk and mediator of the peace process in the Eastern DRC, who, in seeking African solution to African problems, has been developing actions that can help to preserve peace and security in this sisterly country. It is also of major concern the expansion of terrorist groups that continue to severely affect Mali, Burkina Faso, Nigeria and northern Cameroon, jeopardizing the security of population and the cohesion of states. Also in Somalia, despite the efforts of the federal government and the African Union through the stabilization support missions AUSON, repeated terrorist attacks are weakening the entire region of the Horn of Africa, with impact in southern Africa, particularly in the northern of Mozambique. I therefore call on an increased support in all areas, including in greater advocacy among international partners, in particular within the UN Security Council, with a view to mobilizing additional resources that are essential for the success of this peace mission. I also take this stage to reiterate the African Union's firm position that rejects any initiative aiming at recognizing Somaliland as an independent entity, as this is a violation of principles of the Constitutive Act of the African Union and the norm of the inviolability of borders inherited from independence. The preservation of the sovereignty, territorial integrity and unity and stability of the Federal Republic of Somalia is non-negotiable.
Africa
has a strong institution that is capable of meeting the major challenge that our continent faces ahead, thanks to its approach to fundamental issues and its ability to coordinate the major initiatives that we have sought to implement in order to put Africa and place Africa in the path to development. The African Union enjoys growing prestige, as we can see from the interest from our partners in making their voices heard in our meetings, because they recognize our potential internally and the contribution that we can give in our resources to the development of humanity. And our internal resources has courageous yet sensible, moderate and balanced political position on international peace and security, on the global economy and trade, and the energy, food and humanitarian and climate crisis that the world faces currently. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, as a member of the Peace and Security Council for the period 2024 to 2026, my country has committed to strengthen this fundamental body of our continental organization and adapt the African peace and security architecture to the current challenges. We need to improve the effectiveness of our conflict prevention mechanism and conflict resolution so that African Union can strengthen its capacity to respond to crises that affect directly our member states. On this basis, and in view of the increased security crisis in Africa, we have decided to propose an extraordinary session of heads of state and government of the African Union in Rwanda that will be dedicated to analyzing solutions to address and respond to the threats to peace, security and development on our continent. I am convinced that this initiative could contribute significantly to strengthening the mechanism and means of conflict prevention and management and resolution of conflicts in Africa. We are witnessing to the emergence of new phenomena that should not be legitimated and endorsed by the African Union Peace and Security Council. When we talk on the need to restore constitutional order after power has been seized by unconstitutional means, we are not saying that it will be restored as long as the perpetrators of the coup d'etat hold elections and get themselves elected. This is a way of whitewashing an act that lacks legitimacy, which unfortunately is being seen as normal and therefore acceptable, when indeed it threatens the foundations of principles of and peace and security of the continent. This cannot become a norm of attaining power, because it will be an indirect way of encouraging coup d'etats, which are then whitewashed and everything is just fine. Ladies and gentlemen, and the contribution that the Republic of Angola has sought to make towards stability, peace and concord in our continent, we have been convening every 2 years in Luanda the Pan-African Forum for the Culture of Peace and Non-Violence in Africa, the Biennale of Luanda, a platform for dialogue, reflection and cooperation that brings together political leaders, academics, artists and representatives of civil society around the promotion of peace, tolerance and solidarity among the peoples of Africa. This event, which will celebrate in October this year in partnership with the African Union in UNESCO, its fourth event will be held under the theme Strengthening Water Governance in Africa as a Tool for Conflict Prevention, Mediation and Resolution of Conflict, in alignment with the theme of the year 2026 adopted by our organization. In this context, I invite Excellencies to join us in Luanda and actively participate in this important event. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, we live in an era of global geopolitical reconfiguration, making it essential that Africa to defend strong and common position on vital issues such as climate change, health, human rights, peace and food and security, and multilateralism, which should be seen as the most important tool for the restoration of the World War. In the current geopolitical context, marked by a worrying weakening of global governance institutions, has greatly undermined the positive advances made in the field of multilateralism in recent decades. This fragility is particularly acute in Africa, forcing us to redouble our efforts to defend our interests, our peoples, and our nations. Therefore, we must continue to build a stable, integrated Africa where conflicts are prevented and resolved by African mechanisms, ones that are strong and consistent. That is why I call on member states to adopt a more responsible and inclusive forward-looking governance so that our institution can reflect the collective will that strengthens the confidence of our youth in our common project. Africa has the resources, knowledge, and political will necessary to turn its challenges into opportunities, what is required is consistent action, responsibility in implementation, and solidarity among our states. This ordinary session should allow us to assess the progress, identify challenges, and above all, make clear commitments capable of producing real impact in the lives of our population. It should also reinforce our collective resolve to build a more resilient and fairer and more prosperous Africa in line with the vision of Agenda 2063 and legitimate aspirations of the African people. With this consideration, I hereby declare the 39th Ordinary Session of the Assembly of the Heads of States and Government of the African Union open. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Merci beaucoup, Votre
Thank you very much, Excellency. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, permit me now to invite His Excellency Ambassador Yusuf Assoumani, Ambassador of the Union of Comoros to Ethiopia and Parent Representative accredited to the African Union, Dean of Ambassadors in Ethiopia, to introduce the new Bureau of the AU Assembly for 2026. Ambassador, you have the floor. Excellency,
Monsieur Lorenzo,
João Lorenzo, President of the Republic of Angola and current Chairman of the African Union. Excellency,
Monsieur
Abiy Ahmed, Prime Minister of the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia. Excellency, Mahmoud Ali Yusuf, Chairperson of the African Union Commission. Excellency, is Heads of State and Government of the African Union. Excellency Giorgia Meloni, Prime Minister of Italy. Excellency Mohammed Mustafa, Prime Minister of the State of Palestine. Excellency Antonio Guterres, United Nations Secretary General. Excellencies, Ministers of the African Union. Excellency Ambassador Malika Al-Dadi, Deputy Chairperson of the African Union Commission, Excellencies Commissioners of the African Union, all heads of African Union organs, colleagues, ambassadors, dear participants, ladies and gentlemen, I have the singular honor of presenting the composition of the Bureau of the Assembly of the African Union for 2026, pursuant to the rules and procedures of the Assembly. Chair, the Republic of Burundi. First Vice Chair, the Republic of Ghana. Second Vice Chair, the Republic of Tanzania. Third Vice Chair, for the third Vice Chair, regional consultations are still ongoing. Rapporteur, the Republic of Angola. And so, ladies and gentlemen, this is the proposal for the composition of the Bureau of the Assembly for 2026, and I thank you.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur
Thank you very much, Ambassador. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, permit me now to proceed to the handover of the chairmanship of the African Union. I have the honor to invite His Excellency João Lourenço, President of the Republic of Angola and outgoing Chair of the African Union, to deliver his remarks. Thank you, Excellency. You have the floor.
Sua Excelência Evariste.
Your Excellency Evariste Dashmi, President of the Republic of Burundi and incoming Chair of the African Union, Excellencies, Heads of State and Government of African Union Member States, Your Excellency Mahmoud Ali Yusuf, Chairperson of the African Union Commission, ladies and gentlemen, Excellencies. It's a great honor and a feeling of fraternity that I convey to you on behalf of the Angolan people and myself my greetings to President Evariste Ndayishimiye as chair, incoming chair of the African Union. The choice of yourself is a recognition by all of us that the African Union over the next 12 months will be led by a leader who will know how to care for our interests and our common objectives, using all his wisdom and his values for the implementation of these endeavors. So I wish him success in this dignifying mission on behalf of Africa, and we should base ourselves on the principle of unity, solidarity, and peace and stability, and inclusive development. Excellencies, in 2026, we have set ourselves the challenge of implementing a key issue for the African continent, which is to assure sustainable availability of water and safe sanitation systems to achieve the goals of Agenda 2063. Access to safe drinking water and sanitation systems is a moral and political imperative that requires a firm commitment by government and its local governments, including partners, including companies, civic associations, and we will be better equipped to face this problem that Africa faces if we join forces. Mr. President, you have a complex and demanding mission ahead of you, which will absorb a large part of your energy, of your time, but I believe that it's worthwhile to look for solutions into which all of us are included so that we break this cycle of underdevelopment that we face, that has very promising perspectives if we focus our attention and energies to achieving this goal. At this moment, as I hand over the baton, I must acknowledge the remarkable work of the African Union Commission, its chairperson, the technical staff, and the entire team that accompanied me with dedication, competence, and unparalleled commitment, deserving of my highest commendation for their service to the cause of restoring dignity and defining a clear and tangible horizon of progress and development for what Africa is and will become in the future. Mr. President, I'm aware that all African nations look to you with the renewed and expecting you to carry forward with the dynamisms, the programs that we have designed, and we know that we will spare no efforts to provide our essential contributions to the success of your mission. Thank you very much.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you very much, Excellency. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I have the honor to welcome Evariste Ndayishimiye, President of the Republic of Burundi and the incoming Chairperson of the African Union, for the handover ceremony and to deliver his acceptance speech. May you give me a round of applause, please. Excellency Ndayishimiye, please, you are welcome.
Excellence, félicitations.
Merci.
On va faire la passation. Le drapeau. Bonjour.
Bonjour.
Ça va? Ok.
Bom, vamos então dar início a...
So we will now start our handover ceremony, starting with our union's flag. So this was the small flag. Now I will hand over the big one.
Bom, e agora o mais importante.
Now the most important. The token of real power that President Ndayishimiye will take over, which is the gavel, to call people to order. Those who are not in order face the risk of being hit by the gavel on their heads.
Excellence, Monsieur.
Excellency, President, we now invite you to deliver your acceptance speech. Thank you very much. In the name of the Almighty God and all merciful God, I thank you, Your Excellency, Excellency, President of the Republic of Angola, and outgoing Chairperson of the Assembly of Heads of State and Government of the African Union. Excellency, the Prime Minister of the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia, and your wife, His Majesty King of Eswatini and His Majesty King of Lesotho, Excellencies, Heads of State and Government of the African Union, and your distinguished wives, Excellencies, the Prime Minister of Italy, Excellency, the Secretary General of the United Nations, Excellency, the Chairperson of the African Union Commission, Excellency, the Deputy Chairperson of the African Union Commission, Excellency, the Deputy Secretary General of the United Nations, Excellency, the Deputy Chairperson of the African Union Commission, Excellency, the representative of the Palestinian Authority, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, all protocols observed. May the peace of God be with you. At the outset, I would like to thank God who has enabled us to gather here in this beautiful city of Addis Ababa. I would like to express my deep gratitude to the Ethiopian authorities for the warm reception accorded us and for the legendary hospitality extended to us during our arrival in this country. And we also express our deep gratitude for what has been the compliments extended to us during our stay here. Ethiopia has once again confirmed its historic role as a land of African unity and dialogue among peoples. I would also like to pay a vibrant tribute to the founding fathers of the African Union who in 1963 met here in Addis Ababa and decided to transform the Pan-African ideal into concrete project at the service of unity, solidarity, and the sovereignty of the continent. They labored with conviction to make OAU, which became the AU, an instrument of liberation, dialogue, and cooperation among African states, convinced that unity was the pathway to dignity and the progress of the continent, a precious heritage which continues to inspire us. So I will align myself with the others to celebrate the memory, courage of our illustrious forebears. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, from this rostrum, I would like to express my gratitude to you for the confidence that you have reposed in me and through me, the Republic of Burundi and all the Burundian people. This is a heavy responsibility. This is a heavy responsibility that you've placed on my shoulders. And emotion compel me to ask, who am I to lead the whole of Africa through to its destiny throughout a year? And through, thank God, who strengthens me, I will be able to do that, because he doesn't choose the strongest, but he rather fortifies and strengthens those that he chooses. Thus, it's with great honor that we accept with humility the duty, with sense of duty and devotion, this duty of serving our continent in its diversity. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, today more than ever, the honor that you have done to Burundi today is historic. It is the expression of the confidence or trust placed in a nation which has suffered a lot from the effects of colonization, a nation which has been adversely affected by history, but which has been able to overcome through dialogue, reconciliation, and political will. So I wish to assure you that Burundi would exercise the chairship in a spirit of listening, impartiality, and cooperation with all and for the good of all. We intend to work with all countries, with the African Union Commission, and with all our organs in the search for consensus. In the same vein, I would like to express my gratitude to the outgoing chair and brother João Lorenzo, and I congratulate him for the work done, and I also commend him for the quality of his leadership, his consistency in action, and his unswerving commitment to the African continent. Under the impetus of Angola, the African Union has made strides, especially in efforts to rationalize our meetings, streamline our working methods, and improve the efficiency of our decision-making processes. Burundi intends to continue on the same tangent, and we would consolidate against and maintain the spirit and work together with the champion of the institutional reform of the African Union, His Excellency and Brother William Ruto, and as well as the member states and the Commission, to ensure gradual improvement in order to further enhance the efficiency, coherence, and the credibility of our organization. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the sister Republic of Angola has handed over to Burundi against the backdrop of an international contest blighted by considerable geopolitical transformation, security crisis, persistent economic tensions, and the accelerated effects of climate change, and the increasing questioning of multilateralism. In the face of the surge in unilateralism. The challenges to be addressed would require collective response based on dialogue, solidarity, and respect for international law. In this complex environment, multilateralism still remains key to peace, stability, and sustainable development. Thus, the entry of the African Union to G20 affirms this dynamic and marks an unprecedented recognition of the strategic role of the continent in global governance. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, without vision, people perish. And we know where we are going now and what we want and the strategy to be adopted so that we achieve our objectives. So this is a duty and historic obligation for Burundi to reinforce and amplify the voice of Africa on the international scene and contribute actively to the building of a fairer and balanced and inclusive international order. The implementation of Agenda 2063 will be our main concern during this year of our chairship, because this agenda for us is a moral contract which binds us to several African generations and which defines the pathway for an integrated, peaceful, prosperous Africa in charge of its own destiny. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, 2026 is under the theme ensuring sustainable availability of water and safe sanitation system in order to achieve Agenda 2063. The theme is not abstract or symbolic. It amounts to a daily reality for millions of Africans. And today, more than 400 million citizens of our continent do not have access to safe potable water, and more than 700 million are deprived of safe sanitation services. Now, the main victims of this situation are, of course, children, women, and those living in rural areas. The implementation of the theme would thus be the main strategic pillar of all member states of the African Union. In reality, the absence of potable water as well as safe sanitation is the cause of avoidable diseases, loss of productivity, school dropout rate, and is also a factor in ensuring that we're able to deal with climate change. So without effective sanitation services, we will not be able to do much, because our productivity is contingent upon the health, and which is driven by potable water and safe hygiene. In Burundi, the roadmap of the vision, and the roadmap of its vision, we intend to expedite access to potable water so that between now and 2040, each rural family would have access to potable water within a distance of 15 minutes. We are of the view that if each African country made an effort to reduce distance to potable water, especially in rural areas, each one of us, as a leader of our citizens, would have accomplished his duty. So I'm happy that the theme of the year has led to the mobilization of sector institutions that are adopted in September in Dakar, the vision on water 2063. And today, They are holding a roundtable on expediting access to water and safe sanitation in Africa. I'm eager to receive the draft decision so that the conference will be able to adopt and implement the vision and the policy of the continent on water and sanitation. And I pledge to present it as a common position of Africa and its contribution to the UN Conference on Water, scheduled to take place in December 2026 in the United Arab Emirates, as part of efforts to ensure global access to Target 6 of the Sustainable Development Goals and to place the priorities of Africa in terms of water at the heart of international agenda. We shall endeavor to promote cooperation in order to promote solidarity-based governance. The mobilization of public and private and mixed investments to finance water-related projects will be our priority. We shall sensitize all those who intervene in the water sector to directly involve the local communities and women in the management of water resources in order to yield the desired impact, that is, transforming access to water and making it a tool for peace and prosperity. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the second pillar of our chairship is on peace building as well as ensuring security that are the prerequisites for any sustainable development and regional and continental integration. We all know, Excellencies, peace is sine qua non for institutional stability, for productive investment, for social cohesion, and for trust among peoples and states. I stress the word peace because Burundi recognizes that the delay in its development was largely due to conflicts, even though it had all the necessary requirements for its development. It has also this happy experience of coming out of conflict through peaceful means and maintaining its peace, which has been restored. During our chairship, we shall spare no effort to promote the initiative of silencing the guns, which embodies the deep aspirations of our people to live in security, dignity, and hope. And we want the African Union to put premium on strengthening complementarity between the African peace and security architecture and then African governance architecture in a holistic approach combining conflict prevention, early warning, preventive diplomacy, mediation, inclusive governance, and post-conflict reconstruction in close collaboration with the regional economic communities and the regional mechanisms in order to restore peace. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the experience on our continent shows that durable peace can only be built through inclusive processes of permanent dialogue, reconciliation, reinforcing of national cohesion, and consolidation of institutions. It's also contingent upon the promotion of participative governance, justice, and balanced economic development, as well as taking into account the structural drivers of fragility, especially poverty, persistent inequalities, exclusion of youth, and the marginalization of some sections of our society. We shall once again resort to the dynamism and then the good faith of the youth, whilst also involving women, to reflect on a sustainable strategy for preventing conflict in Africa. Therefore, and as we do each year, in my capacity as the AU champion for youth, peace and security, I intend to organize in August 2026 in Bujumbura, the capital of African youth, one of the biggest meetings of African youth, which will be devoted to a continental dialogue on youth, peace and security, coupled with the Women, Peace and Security agenda. The forum will be intergenerational and will seek to promote open, constructive engagement between the youth, political leaders, continental institutions, civil society, academia, and the private sector. The purpose is to enhance mutual understanding and to capitalize on African experience and to make effective recommendations that are in sync with the realities on the ground. Through this initiative, Burundi would seek to ensure that the youth take ownership of the African youth peace security agenda, whilst affirming the central role of African Renaissance, which we all wish for. In the same vein, the search for peace and enhancing African solidarity, we would initiate a collective reflection on the need to review some institutional practices and their impact, especially those relating to the participation of some states in our work. In reality, in responding to the principles and the normative framework willingly adopted by our organization, especially Article 30 of the Constitutive Act, experience has, however, shown that sustainable peace and peace are contingent upon dialogue, listening, and inclusion. Furthermore, the sad observation is that the categorization of these would only make citizens who would sit on the fence and would not be involved in the activities of the state, because though authorities are accountable to citizens and would also have to engage with the external world. And so this calls for a balanced reflection on the most effective modalities to preserve our common values of unity, solidarity vis-à-vis our people, whilst maintaining open channels of communication necessary for mediation and preventing crisis and ensuring the restoration of constitutional order. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, peace and security cannot be effective on our continent if there are countries in Africa that are attacked against the backdrop of geopolitical, of economic interest of the major powers. We want the voice of Africa to be raised in respect of international law, the territorial integrity of our countries, the sovereignty of our states, and the rights of people to decide their own destiny. No African country should be recolonized, invaded, or obliged to submit itself to any power in the 21st century. Thus, the human values enshrined in the UN Charter should prevail. Excellencies, our continent will not win the battle of development as long as we have conflict in some parts of the region. The situation in the east of the Democratic Republic of Congo, in the Sahel, Somalia, Sudan, and the Central African Republic remind us each day that the crisis in these countries inexorably affect the entire continent. Each conflict undermines our economies and the youth of millions of African youth. That's why I want to appeal to each one of us to support the AU conflict prevention mechanisms and speak with one voice to silence the guns on the continent. Durable stability in some regions calls for solidarity and the commitment of all African states, international partners, and regional actors. The Burundian chairship of the African Union would continue to fully assume its role as catalyst, just as Angola did, so that our joint efforts would help restore peace, enhance the resilience of our people, and open sustainable development prospects and help bring about stability. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the third pillar on which we need to focus on is the future. And that forms part of the vision of African Renaissance based on innovation, science, skills development, and the empowerment of women and youth, which we call A-Rise. In reality, statistics show that Africa would have a population of more than 2 billion in 2050, many of whom will be youth. The demographic dividend can be a strength or risk based on the choices we make today. Our capacity to transform the demographic potential into engine of growth, stability, and job creation will depend on the choices we make in terms of education, vocational training, scientific research, and access to jobs. And so here, I want to stress youth employability, because we note that there is brain drain from Africa to the developed countries. And through A-Rise, we need to encourage the reinforcement of education system, build skills required by the labor market, as well as investments in science, technology, and innovation as essential instruments for the structural transformation of our economies. In our action, the economic and social empowerment of women should be given a pride of place, and it should be cross-cutting in all action, because we are convinced that no sustainable renaissance will be possible without the full participation of women at economic, political, and social life. As the missionary of the African Union, I will continue to contribute with my peers so that states take into account the role of youth and women in development. The Burundian experience in creating Youth and Women's Bank has contributed to the creation of an ecosystem which promotes youth and women entrepreneurship, access to financing, and access to market, especially within the framework of the implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Area. And youth empowerment, I intend to do my best and request the youth during the content dialogue on youth to contribute to the African Renaissance through innovation, and thus strengthen the cultural and digital sovereignty of our continent. Obviously, this transformation can only be dynamic if it brings together all African economic operators among themselves. And this reminds us of the urgency of making operational the African Free Trade Area as a major instrument of industrialization, of boosting intra-African trade, and then building on our regional value chains. So at this stage, I would like to thank all the member states that have ratified the ASEFTA treaty, because now we can effectively launch its operationalization. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, we need to keep in mind that the attainment of our common vision is contingent upon the gradual, coherent, and decisive implementation of the flagship programs of the African Union, which underpin Agenda 2063. Therefore, the development of cross-border infrastructure is sine qua non for the economic transformation, competitiveness of our economy, and effective cooperation among our people. Therefore, so our program will be in line with the development program on infrastructure in Africa, which is the pillar of continental transformation, and which seeks to link our countries through transport, telecommunications, and energy. And it will be remiss on our part if we also don't focus on the permanent search for food security, which underpins any human development. Thus, the comprehensive agriculture development program in Africa would help create jobs and would also enhance the resilience of our economies in the face of the effects of climate change. That's very important. In Burundi, agriculture remains the main means of subsistence of the bulk of our population. And this reality has compelled us to place agriculture, nutrition, and public health at the heart of our national policy. And this experience is guided by a conviction which has become the basis of our public action. Each Burundian should be able to eat in every part of our country. And this translates our vision of a human-centered development, which starts with adequate and healthy food and is consolidated through the capacity of each African to meet his or her needs through his or her work. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the permanent quest for good governance is one of our priorities. And we shouldn't forget the importance of the African peer review mechanism as an essential tool for promoting good governance. Its reinforcement would have contributed to enhance trust, promote institutional stability, as well as the credibility of our state, a situation which is necessary for durable peace, inclusive development, and successful continental integration. We shall continue to support the organs of the African Union, the AU Peace and Security Council, the Pan-African Parliament, the African Court on Human and People's Rights, as well as the African financial institutions, because a strong union is based on effective and credible institutions with adequate resources to enhance their operations. And so I would like to pay a vibrant tribute to all the staff of the African Union. Their professionalism, often which goes unnoticed, is essential, and that drives the operations of our organization. Burundi pledges to support their efforts and promote an effective and respected continental organization. In implementation of our priority, we shall attach a premium to the reinforcement of strategic partnership of the African Union based on mutual respect, the alignment to African priorities, and win-win situation. We shall work to consolidate cooperation with the United Nations, international financial institutions, bilateral and multilateral partners, and with the private sector and civil society in order to mobilize resources, the necessary competence to enable us expedite the implementation of Agenda 2063. Excellencies, I'm convinced that Africa is capable of working with its shoulders with its chest held high through its sons and daughters. The experiences in Africa that is on the move and confident in its capacity of its people to overcome the challenges. We shall ensure that this collective action is carried out in a spirit of inclusion, solidarity, and shared responsibility at the service of the highest interest of the African continent. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, heads of state and government, permit me in closing to pay a vibrant tribute to His Excellency Antonio Guterres, United Nations Secretary General, whose mandate is drawing to a close. Throughout these years, he has symbolized the values of multilateralism, dialogue, and international solidarity in a global context blighted by a myriad of crises and unprecedented challenges. Africa would like to commend him for his sustained efforts to promote peace, sustainable development, and ensure that our continent played its rightful role in global development. His support for African Union's efforts, and his call for collective solution will be a source of durable inspiration. And at a time when he is getting ready to hand over the torch to his predecessor, we express our deep gratitude to him and wish him the best in his endeavors at the service of peace, human dignity, and his efforts for a just world. May you now give him a round of applause, because maybe this is the last time that he's participating in the ordinary summit of the African Union. So may the Almighty God continue to guide you, Excellency Secretary General. And it's on this note that I conclude, and I thank you, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, for your kind attention.
Muito obrigado, muchas gracias, shukran, que Dieu vous bénisse tous. Je vous remercie.
I thank you.
Grand merci, Excellence.
We thank you very much, Excellency. Ladies and gentlemen, I have the honor now to invite His Excellency, the Commissioner for Agriculture, Rural Development and Blue Economy and Sustainable Development, to present the theme of the year 2026. Excellency, Commissioner, you have the floor.
Thank you, Director of Ceremonies, Your Excellency Evariste Ndayishimiye, President of the Republic of Burundi and Chairperson of the African Union, Your Excellencies, Heads of State and Government, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. As part of the theme launch, we will show you a short video, please.
Excellences, chers compatriotes africains, aujourd'hui, nous lançons le thème de l'année 2026 de l'Union africaine. Assurer la disponibilité durable de l'eau et des systèmes d'assainissement sûrs pour atteindre les objectifs de l'agenda 2063. L'eau et l'assainissement ne sont pas seulement essentiels à la vie, ils sont le socle de la dignité et du développement sur notre continent. À travers les cultures, les religions et les civilisations, l'eau a toujours été reconnue comme source de vie. Elle n'est pas un privilège, c'est un droit humain fondamental. Pourtant, pour plus de 400 millions d'Africains, ce droit reste un rêve. Ils n'ont pas accès à l'eau potable et près de 780 millions d'entre eux manquent d'assainissement de base.
The AU 2026 theme recognizes that water is not only a social necessity, but also a driver of industrialization, job creation, and sustainable development, essential for public health, food security, economic productivity, and social well-being. It is a call for African leaders to strengthen political leadership, mobilize investment, and advance integrated approaches across borders. It will catalyze transformative action, strengthen governance, and accelerate progress toward Agenda 2063 and SDG 6.
Too many families still walk long distances to fetch water. Too many children miss school because of unsafe sanitation. Too many communities are pushed back into poverty each time droughts or floods strike. This must change. That is why the African Union Commission has declared 2026 as the year of assuring sustainable water availability and safe sanitation systems to achieve the goals of Agenda 2063. This theme is a statement of intent and a promise to the people of Africa.
Achieving universal access to water and sanitation requires substantial and sustained financing. The theme helps the continent mobilize greater commitments from member states, development partners, and the private sector to close Africa's water investment gap.
Thank you very much. Your Excellencies, water is life. Sanitation is dignity. That is why in 2026, the theme states clearly that assuring sustainable water availability and safe sanitation systems to achieve the goals of Agenda 2063 reflects our collective resolve to address one of the most fundamental enablers of Africa's development. Your Excellencies, through this theme of the year, we are called to reflect and act urgently to close the water investment gap in order to assure public health, food security, and climate resilience for the Africa that we want. It also provides us with a platform for mobilizing investment and finance to support member states in unlocking domestic and external finance and close the annual investment gap for water and sanitation, which is estimated at US $30 billion per annum. The theme also calls for strong political leadership, effective governance, increased investment, and strengthened partnerships across all sectors. It is fully aligned with Agenda 2063, as well as Sustainable Development Goal number 6, and Africa Climate Change and Resilience Development Strategy. As AUC, we are committed to assist all member states on this theme. From this August Assembly of the African Union, I now hereby solemnly proclaim and officially launch the AU theme of the year 2026 and call upon all member states, institutions, and partners to act together to assure sustainable water availability and safe sanitation for all Africans. Let us translate commitment into action and secure a resilient, prosperous, and water-secure Africa for the present as well as the future generations. I thank you.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Commissaire.
I thank you very much, Commissioner. I would like to greet great personalities who did much to the Pan-African organization. The former chairs, Madame Zuma and His Excellency Musa Faki Mohammed. We wish them a warm welcome. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, we have come now to the group photo, and I would like the delegates to remain in their seats in order to ensure the good organization of the group photo. And I would like respectfully to invite the heads of delegations of member states, His Excellency, the chairperson of the African Union, the President of the Council of Ministers of the Republic of Italy, His Excellency, the Secretary General of the United Nations, Her Excellency, the Deputy Secretary of the Secretary General of the UN, His Excellency, Prime Minister of Palestine, His Excellency, the Executive Director of the African Development Bank, and the protocol will guide you. And on this, I would like to thank you for your time and wish you fruitful deliberations. Ladies and gentlemen, we will resume in about 30 minutes. We have the coffee break. We will resume for the closed session, and we would kindly ask the media to leave the hall. Please remain in your respective seats in order to organize the group photo and give the opportunity to the heads of state and government to go to the indicated venue. Thank you.
ተመልካቾች እንግዲህ ቀጥለናል።